It's a pleasure to hear your life story. And especially, I'm intrigued and fascinated with intellectual illumination. But as a psychologist, I have to wonder, how do you know if or when you're crossing over from a spiritual experience to something that might be psychotic? There's the similarities of that, and I know Stan Groff has written about it, but how do you...
I think in the tradition, it's always, the criterion, by their fruits you shall know them, And there isn't a dissociation, and there is a clarity and a certitude and a fruit that comes from that.
But you're hearing God, and God is giving you a mission.
Yeah, but it isn't hearing God in the sense that someone hears a voice. It's a locution. It's an inner knowing. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, God has never spoken to me with words. I mean, once in a while I've heard my name called, but I've never had conversations with God like Neil Donald Walsh, who makes God look like a talkaholic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And he's gotten a lot of mileage out of that. He's had like 7 or 8, 9 volumes of this kind of loquaciousness going on. Divine
look. Lots of people that are having those conversations.
You have to be very careful too, I think, and not necessarily put down this one particular individual, but it was the same with the phenomenon of channeling. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to subtract the narcissistic egoic impulse out of that.
Yeah.
Because generally what happens when true mystics or saints or sages have these kind of visionary experiences is they're known interiorly and they're very private. They're not something that you rush out and tell Oprah.
Yes.
It's just not that, yeah.
You wouldn't say what that mission was.
Right.
Yeah. It's just that, so I'm a little suspicious of people that can't wait to tell the world that God is speaking to them. Because the really implicit message is, aren't I a swell guy that God would be talking 7 volumes through me and not you? And I say, no, actually, I think, thank God he's talking to you and not me, because, that's sort of like the Son of Sam version of God talking to him, if you ask me. But you have to be very careful of those kinds of things. It's not to say that certain wisdom can't come through that, but it's not generally the preferred form of communication of mystics that are getting a little more authentic realization. But it's always a fine line.
Yeah.
Always a fine line. Because, I mean, if you look at the single message, in a sense, of Jesus Christ, and even the early theologians worked this out, and I think this applies to everybody. One person, fully 2 natures. Fully human and fully divine. And I believe that's true of every sentient being. And so the fully divine can talk to you, but it always talks through the fully human. And the fully human is always various degrees of screwed up. That's just sort of that's the definition of getting to be a human. And so that's the wonderful mixture. And you have to, spiritual discernment tells you which side of the spectrum those voices are coming from. And if you read the great mystics, they are always concerned with that. You can read St. Teresa, and she'll say, okay, how do I tell the difference between the voices? She had 3 categories of voices. Mm-hmm. And they were really if you look at them, they were exquisite. Her 3 categories were pre-personal voices, personal voices, and transpersonal voices. And she had that keen and interior discernment. The pre-personal voices, you, of course, ignore. They can be very demonic. The transpersonal, you listen to. And the personal, you write books about speaking with God. So she recommended only the transpersonal.
Exactly.
So it's that kind of discernment. Real mystics are concerned with that and not just blurting out what God is saying.
Right. And I think real mystics are very, very wary of voices and visions. They don't trust them. I don't trust voices and visions.